right, so some new devices in front of me. These are the brand new OPPO 14, 14 Pro, and 14F. But since I technically have an extra Pro device, you can see 14 Pro and 14 Pro down here, I'll be giving one of them away. So make sure you comment what your fave feature of the device is. Obviously, sub to the channel and I will hook you guys up. I thought I would do a quick unboxing. I unboxed these two for social, and since I have an extra one, I'll unbox it here for the longer form. So you can kind of see the box design. Pretty simple stuff. We've got obviously OPPO, the naming, and it's in like this nice silver. It is larger, so compared to like a Samsung, an iPhone, I expect there to be some form of accessory. Let's take that cut. Boom. That comes off. And inside you can see Make Your Moment. That's their name, or I guess their slogan for this time around. And inside, like I said, we do have some accessories. We have an actual clear case. It's always nice that brands include some form of like extra accessories, whereas the other ones, iPhone, Samsung, they're quite minimal. So obviously warranty info, quick start guide, little plastic see-through bumper, which is always nice. And inside we've got the phone up top, and of course the accessories inside. You still get a decent charging brick. So this is their 80-watt Super VOOC charger, and you also have a little SIM card tool as well as just the standard USB cable. So pretty typical unboxing, or maybe atypical. It's nice. It's nice we've got some stuff. To the actual phone itself. So this one is in this matte gray color. For any of you like Audi fans, this reminds me of almost like Nardo gray. It's got a bit of metallic to it. Very sleek, very professional look, and obviously on the front. So the display is completely flat. On the Pro, it's a 6.83-inch panel, and if I compare it to the other two, which you can see the other Pro, which is the same size, and the slightly smaller standard Reno 14. And quickly, here's a look at the 14F on its own. It actually has the same pattern design, but in a different color of opal blue. It's a bit more visible, to be honest, and you can see the three different devices side by side here. So that's the entire Reno 14 lineup. So the 14F is the most budget-friendly of the bunch. It's the only one rocking a Snapdragon processor with the Snapdragon 6 Gen 1. It's an older chipset, but still great for cheaper or more budget-friendly devices. On the back, you can see it has three cameras, so the 50-megapixel main, 8-megapixel ultra-wide, and a 2-megapixel macro. The front has a 6.57-inch display. It's 2372 by 1080. It's 397 ppi. It's still AMOLED. It's still 120 hertz, which is awesome when you compare it to, say, the iPhone later, which is 60 hertz. That's obviously more expensive. It still has a 6,000 milliamp hour battery, once again upping the iPhone, and the biggest differences here are the processor and the camera. But check out the colorway on the other two devices. This one's called Opal White. It has this really interesting, what OPPO calls an iridescent mermaid design. So whether or not these are like mermaid scales, they have that really cool shimmer, especially when you catch the light, you can kind of see it. It's got this really unique look, and you know, you might love it, you might hate it, but you got to give props to OPPO for having something a bit different. If you compare this to, I mean, like the tried and trusted, everyone compares it against like an iPhone, which comes in, you know, pretty neutral colors. You just have a flat color. That's it. And if you are a fan of getting something with a bit more of an interesting design, something way more unique, especially if you rock that like see-through bumper on it, I think this could definitely be one of the more unique design phones that I've seen. And trust me, test out a lot over the years. That one's pretty cool. And like I said, for the Pros, you've got the titanium gray, maybe more professional, and of course the white. And then on the standard 14, you've got the white as well as a green color option. And the biggest differences between, say, the Reno 14 and the Reno 14 Pro is obviously the size. So for the smaller guy, that's 6.59 versus 6.83 inches over on the Pro. Obviously, that increases the overall dimensions in the size. That will also change the battery inside as well. That's once again 6,000 versus 6,200, and there is a slight difference in the camera. So if you look closely, they look similar, but the ultra-wide, which is actually the smaller camera, so on the standard 14, that's 8 megapixels versus 50, and if you really like pixel peep at it, you can see like a difference in the camera. I'll try to get a close-up macro shot, but for the main, that's 50 megapixels across the board and a 50 megapixel telephoto on both that zoom up to 3.5 times and a 2 times crop, which gives it a 7. And if you want to do something crazy with AI zoom, you get all the way up to 120x. Once again, I'll leave some sample shots when I actually go to Croatia. I'll test them a bit more in depth. I think it's way more cinematic and sunnier looking than rainy Toronto. The next difference, maybe even slight, but there is one for the processor. So on the Pro, it's running a higher chipset. So that's the MediaTek Dimensity 8450 versus the 8350 on the standard Reno 14. Is there that big of a difference in my initial testing? Honestly, both feel very quick, very snappy, maybe loading times slightly faster. So if you're really that pro user, you love to game, if you've got screen on times of 8-9 hours, maybe lean a bit more towards that one, but I think you'd be happy with both. And like I said, in terms of the displays, obviously that screen size difference, a slight PPI difference because of the size, but both AMOLED displays, both 120 hertz. And honestly, when I compare this, I would say the standard 14 to say the good old iPhone, like I said, the tried and trusted, they both have similar form factors. This is usually the phone that every phone stacks up against. Everyone loves to compare against an iPhone. So I'll quickly go through the differences here. Obviously, you see the difference in the overall size. So the Reno 14 is slightly larger. Like I said, 6.59 versus 6.1 inches over on the iPhone. And honestly, when you stare at them at a first glance, they have pretty similar design. So you've got, of course, the aluminum around the outsides. You've got the back, which is glass. Obviously, the difference in the design elements, the really cool iridescent white over on the Reno 14, the standard color palette on the 16. We actually have a very similar camera layout. So you've got obviously the stacked ones on the iPhone. That's the 48 main and 12 ultra wide. And like I said, for the OPPO, you've got the 3 different lenses. So make sure you follow along when I'm in Croatia. Once again, way better photos than anything that I can take here. Plus, it's way sunnier and I'm in a different location. And like I said, even for the display tech, it feels like the iPhone is just living in a different era. It's still stuck at a 60 hertz panel. Even something like the bezels are considerably chunkier. It feels slower. It doesn't have that fluidity of 120 hertz. Even the resolution, the PPI on the OPPO is better. For display tech, easily the Reno 14 takes the cake here. For performance, obviously everyone loves to benchmark. So on the iPhone, you're running the A18 chip that typically does really well on stuff, say Geekbench. The Dimensity 8350 on the other hand won't look as good on those benchmarks, but honestly for performance in actual day-to-day use, the OPPO actually has a better vapor chamber. So if you are someone that plays games, you can utilize that 120 hertz. Gaming on Android phones in general has always just been better in my opinion. Obviously that varies from app to app, but the fluidity of having that faster display just makes this one seem like it's a faster experience. I'm not saying that it might actually be. Maybe loading times are similar across the boards, but having that faster display, having that faster screen just gives that bit of an extra edge. And with that gaming mind, if you are someone that really pushes your phone a lot and are on it all the time, that's obviously directly tied to battery life. So there's a really big difference here. So 4,000 over on the iPhone versus 6,000 on the OPPO. That's a 2,000 milliamp hour difference, obviously. And you also have to remember you get an 80 watt SuperVOOC charger inside of the box, which helps it charge faster versus the standard 30 watt charger that's technically not even included inside of the iPhone box. You'd have to buy that separately, but you can juice it up faster. The battery lasts longer. So if you're a big heavy user, obviously battery life is the biggest thing on smartphones. Still have no idea how they're gonna come out with the iPhone 17 Air. I think that is going to be a terror show, but that once again is a separate video on its own. And obviously one of the bigger discussions is around AI. So I was actually just at a WWDC, which they did not even mention one thing about AI. For the iPhone, it was super slight. There were no updates to Siri. Whereas over on OPPO, on Android, it's all about Gemini. In my opinion, those are the leaders in terms of AI performance. So something as simple as AI Eraser, you've got Reflection Remover, AI Unblur, AI Perfect Shot. A lot of those features people actually use day to day, especially when you're trying to take photos of landscape, cropping people out. iPhone only has their cleanup function. Once again, stay posted for my full camera testing to kind of see the differences there, but a lot more AI features over on the Reno. For AI productivity, OPPO has something called AI Voice Scribe, where you can do real-time transcription and translation. I know that iPhone literally just announced that at WWDC for the next iOS. That is still obviously running in beta. I don't actually have it installed quite yet because it's still a little bit buggy, but until then, you can only use that on your OPPO phone. And lastly, this isn't technically new, but say iPhones, they kind of like gatekeep, kind of keep things within their own ecosystem. On OPPO, you have something called O+ Connect, which you can share all content that you shoot with iPhones, with iPads, any iOS device, which is always nice in case you happen to be using multiple devices. So last but not least, we have obviously durability between them. Once again, the OPPO is a bit more covered at IP69 versus the 68 on the iPhone. So that was just a quick little comparison against, once again, the benchmark of all phones. It's the good old iPhone. But I hope you enjoyed my first look and unboxing of the new OPPO Reno14 series. Let me know what your favorite feature is to win that second model, which I have. But if you're a fan of this iridescent mermaid design, like I said, it's one of the most interesting, one of the most unique designs I've seen backs of a phone, probably in most of my testing. And I hope you guys enjoyed this vid, and I'll catch the rest of you in one of my next ones. Peace.